Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 46 of Enterprise Tech India Unplugged. I'm Deepak, and with us we have Kumaran, who is the CTO and chief mentor for Tiny Magic. We have Nishanth, who is with IBS Software, is an architect. We have Venkat, who is a CTO for Aqua Connect. Right, and what we want to discuss today is a topic which is not often discussed and often discussed enough. Is how does architecture or software development consider operations while building the software which they are building? Do they consider it? What are the challenges they face, or what happens when they don't consider it? So these are the things which we are going to talk about, right? So Kumaran, what is your take on how much impact does operations have on the design of an application or development stage itself?
It is very important. So it's one of the key pillars in IASA itself. It comes under IT environment, right? So just like performance and security is an afterthought, operations is even bigger, right? We never think how it is going to be operated. And that is why DevOps itself has came in, right? So technically speaking, if DevOps is done right, this question will become a moot question. So there is nothing like a separate design that you think and separate ops that you think, because if the developers are going to be operators themselves, they will design accordingly. Probably what's even more trickier is business operations, right? IT operations, at least with DevOps, will handle, but business operations is something which DevOps won't be able to handle. So that will still be a weak point over there. So I think that is definitely a challenge, and it is continuously, it's going to be there. One of the things which I have kind of done to handle this is to actually give the development team the responsibility to operate both IT operations and business operations. In fact, past 1 year that has been happening, lot of features of my application has been added by developers because I made them operate it. So it's something like, I will say, I want this report, I want this to be done. Okay. As a business user, I will say, you get this, do it for me. Then they will use it and say, oh, this filter is not there. Clicking 5 things is so boring. Let me add a feature. So basically, it is like they are doing it for themselves, kind of a thing. So if you want to ask operations by design, I will say the easiest design change to do is to make the development team operate the application. That is the best design change you can do. There's nothing more powerful than that. Make them the operators of that. Now, in a small team, probably like mine, probably like Venkat's team, it is very feasible and to a large extent also practical, provided we think that much. For a product company like Nishanth's, it is half possible. But for a purely services company, I think it will be very hard to implement because you need buy-in from a lot more stakeholders.
So when you say let the development team do the operations, do you mean to say they are responsible for keeping the application running also? They are responsible for monitoring it in production. They are responsible for ensuring that backup is happening.
Yeah, so that is the IT operations bit, of course.
Yes.
So that I'm not even taking it as a point of negotiation. I'm saying that is mandatory.
Okay.
So there is no separate ops team or infra team. The dev team is responsible. If the main server is slow, I will call any developer and say, why is the production server slow? Okay. That person has to answer that question. Okay. Now he talks to another person and gets it and tells, doesn't matter. But I can call any tech guy in the team and then say, why is the production server slow?
So has this change in sort of responsibility which you have done, has this changed the approach to the way they design the software?
Yes, it has. So essentially when the new feature comes, right, they start thinking like, let's say they have to take a backup, right? Now, when they say, when I kind of say, can we put another database, right? when somebody says we'll do, I say, no, man, backup is a problem. So automatically it will come, right? So, or somebody says, I want to add a new field for this. I'll say, hey, no, man, schema update across staging, production and all is a problem. Can we do it without adding another field?
Okay, so the problem solving itself changes.
So that when you do a design review, right, when somebody says, we'll add another field to do it, okay, then the thing is like, oh no, you have to run that script in staging, production, and this thing, it's all going to be a problem, right? The old backups will become, you cannot, so things like, then they start thinking, oh, the old backup you cannot restore, right? For example, if you add another table, then your old backups becomes a problem. How do you restore it, right? Or you change the table structure. If I do a backup, which means all my backups have become invalid, right? Which is a very big problem. Especially if there are changes to critical tables, right? I removed 2 columns from an old table, or I changed the data type, right? Now, what happened to the backup which I took 2 months ago?
Invalid.
It's become invalid, right? So these things they have started thinking.
Right. Yeah, because these things you will never know until you have to restore something, right? And restoration comes only when you operate something and something goes bad, or maybe a bad patch creates some problem and you want to restore data, and that's where you want to go back to a state which you may not have. Right. So yeah, good examples. Nishanth, any examples which you have on how the way you develop your products and services, how that is actually influenced by how it will be operated by an operations team, or do you have a connect with them while designing and developing the product?
Yeah. In our case, as we are building and running a SaaS-based mission-critical product like airline passenger reservation system, scenarios, the operation, it is extremely critical, as we know, the downtime or a single outage may cause severe impact to the airline operations. So even in that context, we used to have this operation sometimes as an afterthought, like especially when we design maybe or as small stories or small functions, we may not have that operation aspect in our mind, like Kumaran mentioned. If we have to add a new column to a table or something like that, we may not think about how this operation team is going to update or apply the upgrades, whether the upgrades would update demands and downtime. Those all are in fact affecting the SLA. So my general thought or the point that I have been considering in these things, like we should, especially in the agile model, we should actually add or invite the operational expert or the operational member, or even in some companies DevOps, definitely, and most of the companies DevOps is completely a different team. We should invite or add them also a participant or a listener or a reviewer in our grooming, starting from the design. So there is a mutual benefit, like the operation or the DevOps team would get an idea on how this product building is happening and what is the development team's maturity on an operational thought. And the operation teams can share their feedback on how they are going to manage, and do they foresee any issues while they going to run this application this particular team is going to develop. So that kind of knowledge exchange would definitely bring more value additions, and I think that will eventually help both teams.
So this is interesting thing which you used sort of as a, I would say, the name of the team, which is the DevOps team. So Kumaran, this probably you will relate to that. When in most large organizations, they have this team called quote unquote the DevOps team, right? Which is actually nothing to do with DevOps, by the way, right? So they are the people who are just operating the tools on and automation.
Most of the things they're just calling it ops as DevOps so that it sounds cool. That's just what has happened, unfortunately.
So it's not really ops, but this is like a team in between.
Probably the difference was previously the ops team won't write one line of script.
Yes.
Right? Or if they say anything script, they'll say that is development team work.
Yes.
Today, that ops team takes responsibility for writing some Python code, or
Yes,
they are
sir.
taking responsibility for writing some script, PowerShell script. If they write, then they are a DevOps team.
Exactly.
So an infra team which can write scripts is a DevOps team.
Yes. And so, yeah, means that is how it is being used in the industry. Yeah, Nishant, go ahead.
And second thought is like, as Kumaran mentioned, I think we should actually really make the operational importance culture to the development team. Like they should understand what the impact a particular piece of code would make to the end user, or the reputation of the organization, or the from a financial aspect as well. So
the business operations,
yeah, correct. So when there is an operation issue, I think we should give a visibility to the actual developer group also on this, what impact. It is not about pinpointing an education aspect like this. See, these all things we should consider in our mind while we write a piece of code or while we design something, because operationally this is how it is going to run, and this is the impact it is going to make. So that kind of knowledge building is extremely important, especially when we build a product or even in a service company. That's my thought on this.
Okay. But did you face any challenge which you want to talk about where you saw that because the operations part was not considered, the product had to be changed or the bugs had to be fixed later on? Did you come across any such example?
One challenge that I'm feeling is like when we build a product, especially in an MVP aspect or in a file kind of things, even the architects or the developer may think about these operational things based on the previous experience. But considering the business criticality or time to market aspect, the management may not give that much importance to at that point of time. And it would eventually actually we will lose the grip on that things, and finally what happens is like it will in an aggressive mode, it will go to production, or and again it will, because the mindset we are in is like finally it is going to manage by a different team. It's a less priority things for us. For the product team, it's a less priority things because it is finally going to manage.
That guy will take care of it.
So the real pain we can, or the actual negligence or the importance of those kind of aspect we can generate is like when there is an operational issue, actually this particular developer group should involve, so that they realize the pain behind solving an operational issue, because solving an operational issue is extremely pressure situation than solving an issue in the development phase.
Right.
Those are completely different scenarios.
Right. Yeah, I think this is a common enough scenario that people go back and forth with operations and do not consider it as an important user story actually. So this should be, operations should be actually added to every feature should be added as a user story, that how operations is going to run this feature, or what is going to be the impact on operations related to this. So this is
that is a right thought, I think, because if we have a separate user story for how to run this particular story or how to run this particular feature in production, then we have more control on that. At least we have an even from an analysis point of view.
Right. Venkat, any thoughts?
Yeah, so I totally agree, and we could have a user stories on how we are going to run our operations. But in our scenario, since it is our startup company and we are developing the MVP, and there are more issues we need to consider. For example, in our real life scenarios, I asked my developer team to go for the SQL database for the particular use cases. Since he is the one who is going to handle the operations as well, then he is giving the feedback, sir, don't go with the SQL database, go with the NoSQL database. Well, that is because we haven't fixed any of the information architectures. We don't know how many columns we will be adding it and removing it. Once it is gone to the production, so adding the more columns is more difficult, as the Kumaran mentioned. Since it is a NoSQL database, it is only the object-oriented information. We don't need to worry about how many columns or what is the relationship between the both columns, which can be eliminated at this point of time. Once we have fixed the architectures, then we'll take once this proper schema design, then we'll decide which database we need to go for which part of the informations. So as that way we'll take the more advantages once we have involved our development team in the operations side as well. Yeah, that is the scenario we have also encountered. Yes, thank you.
Okay. So any special challenge which you faced, which you want to share about things which went into production, and because you did not consider the operations part, any challenge which you came across?
Let me think.
Okay. Kumaran, anything you want to add while Venkat is thinking of the challenge?
So, see, I think the practical challenge will be, so this is another thing. This is where whoever is the executive management, right? Now, when you say you want to involve them in operations, that needs to be an element of vulnerability, right? We will think the developers have a chance of missing something. So there will things that will go wrong. Okay. And operations people are more like auditors, right? They are more defensive in their thinking. Developers are more like aggressive in their thinking. So there is a different mindset of the people who work in both these worlds. So when you move from here to there is some amount of learning that will be there, which means that some amount of failures will happen. I think that needs to be there, because developers will have a tendency, just like they will do push of their code into the main branch. Sometimes they will do that change and push it into the production branch also, and doom things will go. Okay. So, and they won't know how to handle it. So then it will quickly escalate. The senior management has to take care of it. Okay.
Right. So I think, so I think just to mitigate that, what needs to happen is, before you give that responsibility of operations, they need to spend time understanding the consequences of what they are doing, and or what is the added responsibility which they're taking up. Right. So, and that preparation, I think, is required before. One is you learn by fire, which is basically you put them in the situation and they will learn by making those failures and learning as they go. Other is you prepare them for this, and which is possible probably in larger organizations, but even in smaller organization, having somebody understand
when you say preparation, right? I think it's not about how to handle something, a release, but a kind of overall approach, right? If things go wrong, you go to your manager first. If he doesn't know, then you come to me. And if we both don't know, we will know whose feet we have to go and fall.
Yes, that is also part of preparation. That is also part of preparation, which is basically how you are going to handle a crisis. Right? That's all.
Which crisis we wouldn't know.
Yeah, which crisis you don't know, because every time it is going to be different.
Correct. Yeah.
Venkat, anything you came up with?
Yes. Okay. So So thing is, in our last project, we developed Aqua Connect app, right? So when they are asking to give the particular sorry. So when we are when our farmer asks to give us the last year's culture data, which we are archiving it every month. We are archiving the cultures data, and we are keeping it in the glacier. And when they are asking, okay, can you please give us the last year's, not this year's, last year's culture data? When you are trying to take the backup, we could not able to take it, because by the time we have changed the design of the current year's the culture data. So that's where we face this kind of issues. Then we could not able to take it. We could not use that the backup itself.
Yeah, I think this is exactly the kind of
this is the typical example.
Yeah.
We are faced with, yes.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's a sort of a feature. I would say this is more like a feature failure also, right? When you move to an advanced, and this is a very common thing, why people don't understand why Windows is still popular in the enterprise. It is exactly for this reason. Everything if you created an application in Windows in 1995, it is very likely that you can still install it in Windows 11 and it will still work. Right? This is what they have created, this backward compatibility, right? And that is why it is so hard to change Windows today, right? Because they have to maintain that backward compatibility for the legacies, right? So this is a legacy problem which has manifested in when you upgrade your feature, the previous features just stop working, right? And getting previous data simply doesn't work because operationally it is not possible to restore it because you've moved on.
Right? But sometimes it is also create the problem also. No? For if you take the Java, there is a problem with the divide by zero issues. Like
yes.
So after 7, they have changed it. See, whatever we have developed for before Java 6, it will not work after that.
Yes.
Right. So it's kind of mix and match. So whether we need to what really you are holding it, not supporting it. Right.
Yes.
So.
Right. So I think this backup issue has come twice in our discussion. So I think it is something which probably is a concern for most developers to consider. Yeah. So I think And anything else, Kumaran, you wanted to add?
No, I think.
Okay. I think then that is a good short discussion on the impact of operations on creating, developing, and supporting software. If you like the discussions which we are having here, you want to participate, come to our LinkedIn page, give your comments. We'll be very happy to incorporate it. And if you want to participate, reach out to us. We are open to having guests on our podcast anytime. We are available on YouTube, on Apple Podcast. We have it on Spotify. So anywhere, mostly audio. Video is only on YouTube. You can, if you like seeing our faces, you can come and enjoy it here. Thank you and see you next time.